All right, so today we're going to dive deep into a story you shared with us. And it's really something. It's
Mhm.
got like betrayal and finances all mixed up together.
Yeah,
And it's really about kind of this path to personal empowerment. And so we're going to try to unpack all this
absolutely.
complex relationship.
I think what's so fascinating about this story is this idea, how do you
Yeah,
deal with the emotional wounds
right.
when there's been some kind of financial.
Yeah, is there a connection? Can you separate
All
them?
right,
Kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
How does that all play together?
Yeah. So at the heart of this, it's you know, a story about a woman
Right?
who experienced this really deep betrayal back in 2014.
Okay.
Um, and it was, she had loaned this 14,000 Rand. And then from
It's
that,
okay.
6,000 of that went to her partner to help with the family car.
Mm-hmm.
But then she discovered he was married. Can you
So just
imagine the shock?
yeah,
And I mean, to think that she might have been financially supporting him and his wife. Yeah.
helping.
At the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of deception
Yeah.
really does rock the foundation of trust in any relationship, right?
Okay.
It's not just the immediate hurt. It's like,
Totally.
you start questioning everything.
Right. Like, can you ever trust this person again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you add on top of that, this idea that your financial support
Right.
might have been going to someone else.
Yeah.
That just amplifies those feelings of betrayal.
Absolutely. And then, so then the story kind of takes another turn.
Okay.
Um, the man's wife passes away.
Okay.
And from his perspective, it seemed like he just kind of continued the relationship, right?
Right.
Like, totally unaware that she knew about his past,
Mm-hmm.
but she knew,
She knew the whole time.
and she stayed silent,
Wow.
and she was observing. So I think that that's kind of a pivotal moment.
Yeah. What's going on there? What's her motivation for that?
Right. What do you think?
Well, it seems like instead of like an immediate, really emotional reaction,
Yeah.
she took a step back,
Right.
like a moment to process everything, figure out what was going on, and maybe even like strategize a little bit. I
Yeah.
think that silence maybe gave her some control.
Right. So it's like she took back the power in a way
Yeah, exactly.
by not reacting immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what happened then was there was this gradual process of financial reparation.
Okay.
So he started to repay the 6,000 Rand,
Right.
but it didn't stop there.
Okay.
It actually went beyond that.
Interesting.
So you start to see these improvements in her lifestyle
Okay.
that are directly connected to what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets a Mercedes.
Wow.
She's in the process of buying a Volvo,
Okay.
and they're building a house together.
Oh, wow.
But the ownership is solely in her name.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
So it's almost like he's trying to
Right.
secure her future.
Yeah. And it's not like she needed it, right?
Right, exactly.
You said she has a good job.
Yeah, she's got a great job. Good
Yeah.
investments.
So this goes beyond just like
Yeah.
settling a debt or something.
So what do you think's going on there?
It's like he's trying to make amends,
Yeah.
maybe out of guilt, wanting to atone for what he did
Yeah.
and to really provide her with that sense of security.
Right, and I think this also kind of speaks to the power dynamic.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, he was the one in control, right?
Right. He had the information. He was
Yeah.
the one deceiving her.
Right.
He was kind of controlling the money too, in a way.
Yeah, and now it's like completely flipped.
So how did that happen?
Well, by him giving her all this financial security,
Right.
it's almost like he unintentionally
Yeah.
shifted that balance of power.
He gave up some of that control.
Yeah. So now she's the one
Right.
with the power. She's got the financial power with the house and her own income.
Yeah.
And it seems like she has the emotional power too.
So it's her decision now.
Yeah, she's the one who gets to decide
Mm-hmm.
what happens with this relationship. And that brings us to this really interesting point, which is her internal struggle
Yeah.
with forgiveness versus justice.
Can you forgive someone who's done something like that?
Right.
And should you?
She's trying to decide, should I forgive him,
Yeah.
let go of the past, and, maybe even release him from any other financial obligations?
It's a tough question.
It is, and I
And
think
there's no easy answer?
no, there isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, forgiveness
Right.
can bring peace.
Absolutely.
Right.
It can be so freeing to let go of that resentment
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah.
And she's financially independent, so it's not like
Right.
she needs anything from him.
Right.
Maybe forgiveness could be a way to start fresh.
Yeah, redefine the relationship.
Yeah, okay.
But then, there's this other side of it where you think, well, shouldn't he continue to, make these reparations? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that justice?
Right, because it's acknowledging
Yeah.
the harm that he caused.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also giving her some leverage,
Okay, yeah.
because what if she's not fully healed emotionally?
Right.
Yeah,
It's a reminder of what happened
So it's kind of like
and
this.
a way of holding him accountable.
Right, exactly. It's saying, what you did had consequences,
Right.
and it's not just going to go away.
And it was sometimes those emotional wounds,
Yeah.
they take longer to heal than the financial ones.
Totally. So I think it's really interesting to look at the psychology of all this.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about the betrayal and the
Mhm.
financial manipulation
Right.
and how, these actions are trying to kind of balance things out.
Yeah, it's more than just money, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, for sure. It's way more than that.
What else is going on here?
Well, I think it's about her journey to empowerment,
Okay.
both financially and emotionally.
How so?
Well, remember, she chose to stay silent.
Right.
She observed, and then she ended up with all this control
Yeah.
over her life and the relationship.
So she was really strategic about it.
Yeah, and I think that shows how you can find empowerment
Right.
in these unexpected ways.
You don't always have to react right away.
Exactly.
Sometimes that pause
Yeah.
can be the most powerful thing.
And even with all of this, even with the financial reparations,
Yeah.
the trust is still so fragile.
Right. Can you ever really come back from something like that?
Yeah. Can it ever truly heal?
That's a good question.
And I think that, the relationship now is in this weird place. It's
Yeah.
like somewhere between,
Real love
Yeah.
and financial obligation.
yeah, it's like, are they together because they actually want to be?
Right.
Or because he's trying to make up for the past?
Is it guilt or is it love?
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this so complex.
Yeah, because you've got all these things intertwined.
Right.
Love and money, trust
Yeah.
and betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to separate them out.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the real
Yeah.
question is,
Yeah.
can they rebuild that trust?
Yeah. And I think that's going to take a lot more than just money.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a much deeper process.
Right. So to kind of wrap this up,
Yeah.
this whole story, it's really about this point where, finances
Mm-hmm.
and these deep emotional wounds kind of come together.
They collide.
Yeah. And it creates this whole power shift.
Right. And we're still left with this question of,
Yeah.
can she forgive him?
What does justice look like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, in a relationship where there's been that kind of betrayal,
Right.
can money ever really fix it?
Right. Is it just a Band-Aid?
Yeah. Or can it lead to real healing?
And who gets to decide what making things right actually means?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. So I think this whole story, it just highlights how complicated, relationships can be.
It shows how connected
Yeah.
our emotions and our finances really are.
Yeah. And it gives us a new way to think about,
Right.
the complexities of all of this.
So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
It's given us a lot to think about.